So. Yeah. You might turn me down just a little bit, see if that takes all that feedback. So we're still going through you guys can hear me okay, right? If you can't hear me, then fall asleep and I'll need to speak louder. We're still walking through this doctrine of salvation, but unless you've been, part of the church for a long time, then the idea of salvation is something you don't even know what that means. The word salvation, what does it mean to be saved, right? So we kind of made that into what normal English is for that means. It means not being doomed to hell, right? That's what it means to be saved, is not being doomed to hell, right? So, and then this portion we're looking at, for last week we looked at the first part of the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, I think is all we looked at. And then this is the other end of it, the same Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 7, 1 through 12. And we're calling this, getting in our own way, or how do we not get in our way. That could be applied to last week, by the way, too. If you're not humble, if you're not poor in spirit, where you think you got all the answers, you think you know what's going on, and you don't need any information from anybody else, then you're getting in your own way. So that piece applies to last week too. If you're avoiding, blessed are those who mourn, is what Jesus said. And if you're scared of being sad, if the troubles that are in this world are things that you don't want to deal with, and so you're anesthetizing yourself to those things, and so filling yourself with pleasures or nice things to think about so that you don't have to deal with those things that are uncomfortable, then you're getting in your own way also, and that's what last week was about. So this week we have probably the most well-known verse in the Bible. I mean, you say judge not lest you be judged. Everybody will know that's a quote from the Bible, right? So here, this is the section that we're looking at, and it goes in the context. It says, judge not that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. Which of you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? So whatever you wish that other would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. So that's a pretty familiar passage of Scripture to a lot of us. It may mean something a little differently than the way a lot of us have thought of it, though. It may have some different connotation that you may not have thought about it. I'm trying not to get ahead of myself here. But it's the same idea that where we avoid sadness, we avoid thinking about those things that are uncomfortable for us. Your problems are a lot more interesting than my problems are. I would much rather help with your problem than have you help me with mine. Anybody in the same boat? Okay. Your problems are less painful than mine are. Think about that before you give advice, and think about that before you take advice from other people. When you're giving advice, think about yourself. Okay, am I willing to take on the pain that this person am I willing to bear that pain along with that person, or do I just want to feel good about myself for saying something that's really not going to be used to them? This is the direction that this is going on. So, for with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use will be measured to you. Now, the way that we mess this phrase up is we think that God is vindictive and that he's judging us according to measure that we're judging others. And I don't think that's what this is saying. We think that if I don't judge other people, then I'm fine, right? I won't have to worry about that. I don't think that's the tense of this right here. So God doesn't have a sliding scale of justice. That's really what it comes down to. If God is the just judge, if he judges rightly in all things, then if you're judgy, he's not going to judge you worse for being judgy because he's a just judge, right? Did that make any sense at all? Me and Dr. Seuss. So there's two different things. One is called the reticulating activator, and I like to say that just because it makes me sound smart. But you guys know what the reticulating activator is? I was talked about it other times about that. But if I say purple shirt, you think, why did he say purple shirt? He's not wearing a purple shirt. Purple shirt doesn't have anything to do with the sermon, right? Why did I say purple shirt? Because I have just cursed every single one of you for the rest of the day. Bill's looking at me like, why? For the rest of the day, every single person wearing a purple shirt, you will notice. I didn't plan this. I didn't say this. If you were to look over the notes, purple shirt was in my notes, okay? So it's not you, okay? So, but you're going to see everybody today who's wearing a purple shirt. You're going to notice that. And that's called the reticulating activator. The thing that is put in your mind that in the forefront of your mind, you see that all the time. I never saw gray or whatever color it is, the Camry. I never heard of a Camry. I didn't care until I bought one, and then I saw them all over the place. The same color as mine. At Walmart, it's crazy, scary. Wendy, actually, I didn't think it was important. She made me buy a sticker to put in the back window. She didn't care what the sticker was. She just wanted to make sure that it was for our car, so we'd know what car it was. So that's why there's a sticker in the back window. Yeah. So, yeah, I could tell you stories. That's sad. I hate that when you walk out of Walmart and you go, oh no. Not only do I not remember what I parked, I don't even remember what I drove. That's a sideline. Anyway, the reticulating activator, we have things that come to our mind. By the way, we do that with sins too. Or bad habits. I have a couple of nervous bad habits, things that I just have to be busy and my fingers have to be moving and doing things. And Wendy can tell you every single one of them. Not only she can tell you every single one of them, she can tell you when I'm doing it, every single one of them. I don't even know it, but she knows exactly because it's reticulating activators right there, right? It's in her brain. So we all have those. We have these bad habits that other people notice, and they're annoying, and they're offensive, and they're all those things. But that's not us. It's the other people. They've just grabbed onto that, so they see it every time. I don't have a chance. We do the same thing with sin. We do all kinds of stuff. You know, the homeless guy that's sitting on I don't want to call him homeless because a lot of them aren't, by the way. The peddler or the street peddler who's sitting on the street there asking for money. You guys ever ran a stop sign because you were looking at the guy across the street that was peddling? Have you ever done that? So that's because we see these things and we end up blinded to the rest of the world around us, other things going on. Okay, we're basically putting ourselves in jeopardy by being judging about other people. Does that make sense? That reticulating activator. We can't help it. That's part of who we are. That's what we do. Okay. So that's what Christ is saying when he says, with the judgment you will pronounce, you will be judged. That means that process of just noticing things, you're going to get noticed by those things. Does that make sense? If you're bringing it up, it's gonna come right back on you. So this isn't tit for tat. This isn't God getting you because you've been a bad person. This is just the way people work. We end up placing ourselves under judgment when we're focused on judging. The other thing is that we've trained or ignored, we have trained or ingrained blind spots. The snooze button on the alarm, right? That's a trained or ingrained blind spot. One of my sons had one that walked around, so he had to catch it. So is that one that you could throw also? I think when you caught it, that was a different one. There was one that you could throw and it would turn off. It had little knobs on it. When you throw it against the wall, it turned off. So the cool one, so this child was an adult, so I don't think you ever saw this, but I think it was for Joseph. It was a target, the alarm clock. You put the alarm clock across the room, and when the alarm would go off, there would be a target would pop up, and you had a handgun that you kept on your pillow, and you shot the target and knocked it. Anyway, but we train ourselves. With a real. I never thought of that. Wow. But we have these blind spots where not only we have things that we see and we're always noticing, we also have things that we just don't see anymore. You know, picking up a pencil, saying that word under our breath that maybe isn't as under our breath as we thought it was. I've been guilty of that one. You know, so we have our blind spots, and just so happens our blind spots usually coincide with somebody else's reticulating activator. Isn't it great how God is balanced that way? So it's so it's a real question when Jesus says, "Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye?" It's a real question. Think about that. And the answer is because you can't. Or how can you say to your brother, "Let me take the speck out of your eye," when there is a log in your own eye? So part of that is that we're always working with limited information. We don't know. First, we can't see what we can't see, right? If I can't see it, I can't see it. So if I have something blocking my vision, I can't see that it's there. It's blind spots. So, and then also our opinions are weighted based on our own unique, painful, and pleasurable experiences. Not just the painful experiences, even though those tend to come to mind more often, more regularly. But a lot of times we find ourselves more comfortable with things that maybe we shouldn't be as comfortable with. Used to things that maybe aren't so good for us. As well as we've got other things in our life that have hurt us very deeply, that impact the way that we respond to other people. Does this make sense? So we are judgy, by the way, that we do that. We're going to do that. We're going to judge other people. We have our blind spots. We have our reticulating activators. It's going to happen. So the knowledge is power. So when Jesus says, "Judge not that you be not judged," he's saying, recognize that you are a judging kind of person. That's who you are. Recognize that so we can step back a pace and maybe deal with it honestly and realistically. Does that help? Third thing is there's no crystal balls. You know, my kids do things that I am absolutely sure what the outcome of that is. And I think that their life is going to be just totally destroyed because they make a decision that I think is the bad decision. And you know what? It's never worked out that way. They're doing great. They have struggles, and some of those struggles I kind of predicted, and some of them I didn't. Mainly because I had made exactly the same mistakes. But most of them, you know, they just have learning experiences and they grew up. So sometimes you just got to lighten up. So a lot of times, you know, when based our own painful experience that we have or fears of painful experiences we might have, we get kind of judgy, don't we? So I'm not saying that you're a bad person because you've done those things. I'm saying, hey, recognize this is who we are, okay? So let's take a minute when you start feeling that, start experiencing that, and back up a pace and go, wow, okay, well, how does God want me to deal with this, as opposed to launching into autopilot? He says, "You hypocrite." Now, by the way, the first word, the word hypocrite, in those days wasn't a cause of offense, all right? If I called you a hypocrite today, my purpose for calling you a hypocrite is to offend you. That's all that word does today, right? In those days, that's not how that word was used. The word hypocrite actually meant actor, or any person who is stepping outside of their role to step into somebody else's role, okay? They're doing something that's not their job to do. Sometimes that's a kind of a good thing, right? If somebody's fallen down, hurt on the side of the road, skinned their knee, whatever, and if I walk by going, that's not my job, that's a bad thing. It's important to sometimes step into a role that's not our thing to do. But it's also important to recognize that there are a lot of times where we're inclined to do that when we're inadequate. We're not the right person to do those things. So, I mean, how do you remove something that's obscuring your own vision? Because that's Jesus' answer. He says, first take out the log that is in your eye so you can see to take out the speck that is somebody else's eye, right? You can't do that. You can't remove what you can't see. Okay, so how do we deal with that? Ecclesiastes 4:9-12 says, two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. So the answer to that is community. And this is a lot of the reason why God's given us the church, and that we all have distinctive and individual and unique roles where we can be able to help each other and see things. We all have blind spots. We all have reticulating activators. I need you. I need you to help me see my blind spots and to get past those things that annoy me because I don't see other things because I'm so fixated on those things that annoy me, okay? It's important for us to be able to serve each other. There are people, there's a diversity of gifts in this church. There are different people have different abilities. I was talking to one person who has a great spiritual insight, who can discern things going in the lives of other people. I'm really not good at that. I'm good at discerning actions. But as far as the spirit of person, I'm not really that good at it. So I need that person to be able to watch out and to help me to do my job. Because I can't be all things to all people. That's not my job. That's why we all have roles and parts of the fellowship together. And that's why when you see something going on that, hey, is that a blind spot? Is this something really? I had a friend, cowboy. He was a real life cowboy, and his wife spoke real life cowboy, and the rest of us don't. But this cowboy friend had been told something that was really bothersome about someone else. And he was getting really agitated. You know the story I'm talking about, right? You'll know in a minute. Yeah, but anyway, he was getting really frustrated, really concerned about what this one person had been saying about another person. And his wife said, he said, Tim, you've been sucking on a sour vine? So, yeah, okay, right. And that's all he needed. He said, oh, you know what? You're right. Okay, we need to move direction. So that's why we really need each other in that, because we don't see things clearly on our own. We need each other to see things. We're talking about, I hear probably 2 or 3 times a week, it seems like these days, that so I can worship God all by myself. I don't need church. I don't need other people to tell me how to worship. Well, that's true. You don't need, but if you want to see things clearly, then you really need the perspective of other people in order to do that. Okay? And by the way, that doesn't happen by coming to church and listening to me talk. That's not how that works. That comes from community being community and getting to know each other and being able to interact with each other. Right? So that's where we have to work on things. Another really popular verse that we hear in churches: "Do not give what is holy. Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you." I've always heard that this has been referring to people who are indifferent or antagonistic to the message of the gospel. There's another perspective, by the way. I've talked to people who are here who actually confirm that, and they say that this is the right way to interpret it, and it may be. But another perspective to look at this also is a guy named Dallas Willard wrote a book called The Divine Conspiracy, and he suggested that this verse is actually talking about dogs and pigs. And that if you take a big bucket full of pearls, very valuable pearls, right? And the pigs see you coming. What are they going to do when you see you walking up with a big bucket? They're going to come for you, right? They're like, all right, food. And so you dump out a bucket full of pearls for them. They are not going to be satisfied with that. So that's what the idea that Pastor Willard is suggesting, is that one is when you're going to help somebody, are you really helping? Are you really giving them something that they need, or are you just giving them what you want to give them? Is that, you know that phrase, when you got a hammer, everything is a nail. And so we tend to do that. Well, we also tend to do that with theology, by the way. If I have this one doctrine of theology, and keep in mind, I came from the Messianic Jewish perspective. So I mean, everything is about worshiping on Saturday, or everything is about not eating pork. And if that's not where you're centrally focused on, then there's something wrong with you. Well, that's why I'm not there anymore, because there's a whole lot more to growing closer to God than superficial obedience. Okay? Now, I believe obedience is an important thing, and it's an important step to walking in our relationship with God. But if it's not about our walking in relationship with God, then it's pigs before, or swine before, or pearls before. It's no good. Right? In fact, Paul in I'm going off my notes here. Paul says, "All things are lawful for me, but not all things are expedient for me." He's actually quoting an ancient Jewish text called the Wisdom of Sirach, was the name of the book, and it was written about 100 years before Jesus. And the thesis of this book that this phrase was in is that if you're obeying the commands, but you don't understand why you're obeying, then you're not really obeying. Does that make sense? If it's not something that you're owning for yourself, if you're just doing it because it's what mom told you to do, then it's really not getting any value. Okay. So taking ownership for yourself, what your obedience is. I used to have people, because in a Torah observant Messianic Jewish community, I would have people come to me, and it was always the wife, by the way. And we'd sit down, and the wife would tell me, "You need to tell him he needs to be obeying the law." And I would always say, and they would never stay after this, by the way, because she wanted me to just convince him. And I would tell her, I say, "You need to slow down. Because you grabbed on this stuff with both hands. And when life gets hard, it's all going to fall apart." And he's taking these things step by step, and he's owning them for himself and understanding what he's doing with each point. And you're going to need that solidity in your life when things get tough. Okay? So it's not about checking off all the boxes and doing all the things so that you're good. It's about walking in a relationship with God and growing closer in your relationship with God. So if you got your hammer, and the theological or doctrinal hammer or whatever it is, bad habit police, all those things. My bad habits. She's my bad habits police. So whatever that is, if you're focused on taking care of this issue in other people's lives, you can do a lot of damage with a hammer, right? So be really careful about that. Proverbs 18:1-2 says, "Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his own opinion." And we find ourselves there, don't we? when our mode of self-importance, when my mode of self-importance is, when I'm trying to get everybody to fall in line with the things that I think are important, then I'm being a foolish. I'm not noticing that, I'm not recognizing that I have blind spots. I'm not realizing that I'm pursuing things that are not of God. They're just my own biases. And I'm trying to hit everybody with my hammer. It says, ask and it shall be given to you. Jesus said, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds. And the one who knocks, it will be open. Let's do some confession here. How many have used this verse and gotten really mad at God because I asked and it didn't happen? I'm there today. You know? But we have to keep it in context because first, in the next part of it, a good father gives good gifts, right? And we are evil, don't give evil gifts. So just because I'm asking for it and just because I want it doesn't mean it's good for me. That's the first thing. And by the way, if God doesn't give you something that you want, it's because it's not for your good, because every good and perfect gift comes from God. All right, so if it's not, then there's some reason why you're not getting that thing that you're wanting for, and that's for your good that you're not getting it. I know that's a painful, terrible, awful thing to say, but I have to believe it, and it's been my experience so far, because there's a lot of times where I've gone, God, I really, really wanted this thing, and later I go, oh, thanks for not giving me that. So, but we kept keeping this context when we say, it says, ask, it will be given to you, seek, it will be found, knock, it will be open to you. That verse isn't isolated from what we've just talked about. So, are we asking that the speck be taken away from our brother's eye, or are we asking for the log to be removed from our own eye? That's really what this question is referring to directly. Do I want truth? Or do I want a validation for the things that I want to believe? We tend to do this. This is really scary stuff for churches, actually, because we do that. We isolate ourselves into different groups based on our biases and based on our prejudices. Like gathers to like because that makes us comfortable. That's one of the reasons why I'm Free Methodist, because a Free Methodist embraces that diversity and that need to be able to see things from other perspectives, because I know that my perspective is limited. I need to see things from other people. So, and that's one of the reasons why you'll be hearing from other people. It's not going to be just me. I had to be here up front talking for some. First, because we have to pay people to talk sometimes, and we don't have a lot of money. But also, it was advised to me that I need to be here for at least the first 4 or 5 weeks, and so that you knew that I could do it. So next week, Ed Skipper is going to be here, and then the following weeks, Rob Roy. That's not my choice. I wouldn't have done one right after the other, but Rob Roy's the boss, and I asked Skip to talk first, so asked Ed to talk first. And so Rob Roy asked for the next week, and so because he's the boss, I'll do what he says. Right? So anyway, it's important that we have other perspectives, all right, to hear other people's viewpoints. It's vitally important that we allow other people to express their viewpoints, even when we disagree with them, maybe even especially when we disagree with them. It's a Jewish thing, by the way. It's a Jewish principle that if you and I have a discussion on something or an argument, and I win, I've won nothing. I have gained nothing from that argument. If I lose, if you show me where I'm wrong, then it's as though, I should think of that as though you had rescued me from a deep pit. Does that make sense? It's a value to be shown where your error is. We should value that. And I should value that. So Bill's going to be at me all week now. But if you disagree with something that I'm saying, please, we don't want to make things uncomfortable for everybody in the room, because they won't come back. But if I say something, you go, well, I don't think that's right. Please, let's talk about it. All right? And we'll talk about it not so that I can convince you that I'm right, but so that we can discover the truth. That's what the goal should be. Jesus said, I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go on and in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and to kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. So the point is, it's not God's goal in this to make us uncomfortable or to make us unhappy or to put us into conflict. It's God's goal to bring us closer in our relationship with Him. It's God's goal to demonstrate love in our lives, and so that we can share that love and that experience with those around us. And then the last one is, whatever you wish that others would do to you, do to them, for this is the law and the prophets. It's everything. So Jesus didn't offer anything new, by the way. All this is from the very beginning. This is plan A. God's goal has always been for us to walk closer to a relationship with Him. And if you and I are far apart in our doctrine or theology or our practice or however that, if we're both walking toward God sincerely, if we're developing that relationship with Christ, guess what? We can't help but draw closer together. And that's our goal, not to get you to where I am or me to where you are, but to draw closer to Christ. Okay? So don't judge, but really recognize that you are judgy, just like I am. And that when we get to that point, that have that go, oh, step back and go realize, okay, I must have blind spots here, or I must have things that I see more acutely than I probably should. The reticulating activator, right? And then I need other people in my community to balance those things out. All right? So what does this have to do with being doomed to hell? Well, are we looking for the solutions that God has provided? Or are we just trying to get more people into our church because we like to have more people? Are we trying to build His empire, the kingdom of God? Or are we trying to build our own? Are we ignoring the blind spots in our lives that only God can remove? Are we walking in a relationship with Christ? By the way, if you belong to Christ, you're His, and He will be removing those blind spots. So is this an experience that you're enjoying or participating in, or is it something that you're fighting against? Like last week, are you shoveling the dirty laundry on the old chicken soup? Or are we trying to share the advice that makes us feel important rather than sharing Christ? And sharing Christ isn't just the 4 spiritual laws, by the way, or just how to get to somebody saved. But sharing Christ means, are we living with a relationship with Christ and we bump into someone and Jesus just spills all over them? So that's how this has to do with salvation, because that's everything. And we know, if you were Calvinist, it's a matter of salvation is where you just come in and you click the box and you're in. But we believe that salvation is this work of this continuing work of sanctification, where God is changing us more and more into His image and drawing us. And by drawing us, by the very nature of that, drawing those around us. Okay? I'm all done. You guys want to talk about this or anything else? There's the phone number and the email and the website. So that's our 21st century version of an altar call. All right. Lord God, thank you so much for this time. Thank you for your word. Lord, mostly thank you for your Spirit that did not leave us, but you're constantly abiding and working in us and changing us more and more into your image. Thank you for this community. Thank you for the people who love you and who are strengthening one another in that process of sanctification. Pray that this light just continues to shine out in this community around us, and that the love of Christ touches so many people in need. In your precious name, God, amen.